Hello everyone, it's Trupti and Parthiv, and we will be demoing a storyboard we created with SAP Lumira. The theme we chose is Australian education sector and international students. We are going to look at the education sector and its contribution to Australian economy. We are also going to analyze the growth and downfall of international students in recent years. Finally, we looked at the possible reasons behind the international students' number decline. Now, Parthiv will walk you through the storyboard.
Thank you, Trupti. At first glance, the education sector seems pretty small compared to other Australian industries, as shown in the bubble chart, with the education sector with a value added of almost $22 billion and total income of $34 billion. According to a 2009 report, international students contribute significantly to the $22 billion of value added. As we can see, that in the education sector, almost $4 billion is directly attributed to the internet from the international students. Also, in terms of employment generation, we can see that um, for every one position that's generated in the education sector, another four positions are generated in the rest of the economy. And this is all fueled by the demand from the international students. When we look at the Australian exports, we can see that education is the third biggest export of the country and reached $15 billion in 2013. Now, if we look at the different categories within the education sector, we can see that the HE sector is almost half of consists of almost half of all the students, followed by VE sector, which is almost 25% of the students. It's also interesting to see that there was a very high demand for VE courses until 2010, which is now gradually subsiding. Here we see the main countries that make up Australia's international student cohort. It's evident that Central and South Asia are the biggest markets, with the world's most populous nations, India and China, accounting for over 50% of the international students. Here again, we can see there's a general downward trend in the student numbers after 2010. We shall look into the reasons for this later. This map shows which sector students study based on their country of origin. We see that East Asian students study in all sectors, while the British colonies are more involved in HE and VE sectors. As for USA and Europe, there is a significant proportion of students studying on exchange programs. Here we see a comparison between the enrollments and commencements. Enrollments give an indication of the number of students the universities manage to retain. The commencements represent the number of students that have started studying. It's important for the institutions to have more commencements than completion and attrition in order for them to record growth. This slide shows the number of student visas granted by Immigration Department for HE and VE sectors. The number of visas issued is a fair indicator of the number of new students commencing to study in Australia. We see that the VE has slumped after 2010, and while HE has slumped for a few years after 2009, it is picking up. We also see commencements from India took a nosedive after 2009, and we shall look into the causes of this negative trend. This slide shows how the currencies were faring against the Australian dollar. The Indian rupee was losing value quickly after 2009, making it significantly more expensive for Indians to study in Australia. Talking about expensive, according to a HSBC report, Australia is one of the most expensive places to study, as it has exorbitant fees and a very high cost of living. Also, Australian institutes have a lot of competition from other countries that quote international students, such as USA and Canada. This could also explain the slump in the international students coming to Australia. Another reason for the drastic fall in Indian students was the highly publicized incidents of violence against Indian students in 2009. According to the Australian Institute of Criminology, the rate of assault for males in Victoria ranged from 9 to 14 per 1,000 people. Although the rate for male Indian students was not far from this average, it was significantly higher than students from other countries. This chart shows the number of incidents recorded per year in Victoria. Coming to the last and probably the most significant reason for the drop in student numbers after 2010 is linked to the skilled migration program. Prior to 2010, it was relatively easy for students to transition from student and gain permanent residency through the skilled migration program. Major reforms to the skills migration program were announced in February 2010. This included more targeted skills occupation list, review of points to assess applicants, and imposing caps on visa grants to certain occupations. From the line graph, we can see that there is a proportional increase in student and skills visa grants prior to 2010. But after the reforms, the skills and student visas are going on different paths. I'll now pass it back to Tupti to summarize the storyboard for us.
So to summarize, education sector is major export industry of Australia and international student contribute significantly to Australian education sector. The international student cohort was growing until 2009 and slumped thereafter. Majority of the decline was from students from India and China. Based on our analysis, this decline can be linked to strong Australian dollar, high cost of living, incidences of assault and changes to skilled migration program. So based on upward and downward trend over the decade, we can see that government has to cater for growth of education sector. At the same time, protect the labor market from student migrants for which skills are already available in Australia. Thank you.